What's the score, mate? 2-0. Who for? Welcome to Trinity Tim's. And if your name's Paul Tisdale, thanks for joining us tonight and looking in. Sorry to keep you awake. So, as you can probably tell, there's just the two of us tonight. I think Eric's away Christmas shopping somewhere or other. So, you've got my cheery self, Joe McHugh, and the more glass half full James Forrest from the Celtic blog to talk you through this week's latest batch of nonsense from all things Celtic. So, I don't think either of us was smiling too much this time yesterday. It's been it's been a ridiculous week for Celtic again. So, yep. Well, we don't need to waffle about. We'll go into one subject that we're both very much in agreement on, and that was on Saturday night on the Daily Record website. The Daily Record covers the Sunday Mail. There was a story, a terrifying story, shock horror, disgraceful, intimidation, all sorts of horrific things. And if you read through the detail, there actually wasn't anything in it, nothing at all. Apparently, some posters have been placed in places in Glasgow. There's posters in place all over Glasgow. The Celtic Board of Directors, in particular, Peter Lowell, Michael Nicholson, and Chris Mackay, are not very popular. They don't communicate with supporters. They keep everything to themselves, and they can't even hold an AGM. So once a year, they're asked to become accountable to supporters, and they hid away from it. We get less than an hour of the AGM, and that included a 30-minute adjournment and 15 minutes of the most bland, pointless video imaginable, with no relevance whatsoever for Celtic in November 2021. But to solve all those problems, the Green Brigade have been getting it quite a lot recently, but they went for the wider Celtic support. So the Daily Record / Sunday Mail website on Saturday night had this shock horror story. It was included in the paper version on Sunday. And funnily enough, the Sunday Mail sells about 33... Oh, James, it's getting a bit dark over there. The Sunday Mail sells about 33,000 copies these days, so it does not reach much of a audience. So it didn't have the same impact. Online, yes, it's got a big presence, but it's only one link amongst many. Supporters have looked at it and saw straight through it. And for those apologists, for those happy clappers, this wasn't mischief making. This wasn't the Daily Record being up to dirty tricks. The story was put together by the editor of the Sunday Mail and the news editor of the Sunday Mail. And lo and behold, at Celtic Park yesterday, the Daily Record got the red carpet treatment. The Daily Record were given access to the press area. They were given access to the Celtic manager after the game, full media activities, and the reporters were able to conduct video conferencing after the match for the Daily Record hotline. So all that to help out the Daily Record. James, I'm sure you get plenty to say on it. It is not a good look in any way. It's the actions of a club that's about 25, 30 years at least behind the times. And it's more than doubling down. It's getting ridiculous now. So what was your initial take when you discovered that story online? And what's your thoughts the best part of 48 hours further on?
Well, the story broke, as you say, late Saturday night. And I was hoping that the whole of Sunday could be about focusing on the football. And I had to open Sunday with an 8 o'clock piece about that scandalous attack on supporters. Talk about bringing you down before a major game when everybody should have been up for it and everybody should have been thinking about nothing but the football. It goes to show the kind of people we have running the club right now. They do not give a shit about the team. They do not give a shit. And what was most incredible to me is that they are dwindling band of supporters amongst the club's fan base accuse the collective and people who are protesting this nonsense of being the ones sowing division. It genuinely blows my mind. We be clear right for the start that we are behind the team and the manager. It is the board who keeps on jeopardising the team and the manager because they keep on giving us reasons other than what's happening on the pitch to be focusing on the club. And it's just, I read it in total disbelief. And I was also pretty angry reading it as well. It's an insult to the collective intelligence of every single reader. All 30, you said 33,000 of them. That's less than most blogs get. I thought it was insulting. I thought it was offensive on so many levels. Even the language was deliberately inflammatory and overly emotional. You know, this whole thing about families being targeted is, and I'm sorry to use, it's bollocks, it's bullshit, it's a lie, it's a fabrication, it is untrue. Nobody's interested in Peter Law's family or Michael Nicholson's family or anybody else's family. The focus is on these individuals. The only people dragging their families into this are them, because it's not enough that they'll snipe at the manager from behind a third party. Now they're hiding in front of their own wives and their own kids. It is pathetic. It is cowardly. It is horrendous for them to be behaving this way. And the whole thing about the school, oh, these posters appeared within sight of our school. Guess what? I live across the road from a school. So if someone was protesting me, would they be by virtue protesting the school and all the people in it? No, they wouldn't be. It's an atrocity story. And as you said, Joe, nobody can put this down to media mischief making. This was the club using poor media outlets to attack supporters. That's all it was. This was people inside Celtic picking that night before a massive game to attack our fans. That's the people who run our club. That's what they think of us, that they picked that night to do that, and to do it in such a shameless way, lying through the... It's disgusting.
Here. And that comes just 3 months after they turned to the Sun with someone anonymously telling them what a big bad man Brendan Rodgers was, etc., etc. And apparently it was nothing to do with the club. Wasn't worth an investigation, wasn't worth Michael Nicholson's time. So, I mean, the story, I mean, there's mention of in the vicinity of their homes and all sorts of stuff. But these posters, the posters are a hell of a lot less threatening than the banners that were raised at Ibrox for Paddy Stewart and Kev Thelwell for the game against Roma, which barely got any media mention. It was just some
These
protests.
people don't know what intimidation and whatnot looks like. Although, actually, wait a minute, they actually do. Right? Let me read that again. It's especially hypocritical because some of them do know what actual intimidation looks like. Peter Law is very well aware of what actual intimidation and harassment and threatening behaviour looks like because he's been through it. So to weaponise it like this is especially disgusting, considering he knows the difference. There is a fan outlet who I will not name, whose editor's personal details were published on an Ibrox fan forum not that long ago. And what he was subjected to was intimidation and harassment. The real thing. People turning up to his door, stuff shoved through his letterbox, or the kind of stuff that would constitute intimidation and harassment. I'm sure he's one of the guys who had these credentials revoked over the last week, but we'll get to that subject in due course. It's atrocious. The club, there are people inside Celtic Park who know the difference. And to suggest that this represented intimidation and harassment is pretty ludicrous. It's a couple of posters. And those posters, by the way, only just been posted in the vicinity of Celtic director Sussies. You can see them in various parts of the city. As my old man said the other day, he saw one in Castlemilk. Which of the Celtic directors lives in Castlemilk?
And which of our elderly
comprehend?
Which of our elderly custodians still have kids of school age? I suspect that Peter Lowe doesn't have any kids going to nursery school or primary school.
No.
Nicholson possibly. Brian Wilson. I suspect Brian Wilson doesn't have any kids at school. He might have grandchildren at school, but I suspect also it's far from Glasgow. So a nonsense story. But I read through it a couple of times just trying to find some substance, and there really wasn't anything there. They could have conjured up some sort of incident, but all it was posters. But it highlights how out of touch the club is. and that's their means of communications. And that came 2 days after that. James, we can't let it go without passing. We got to hear from Michael Nicholson after 4 years. We got his first ever interview with Celtic TV. What did you make of that world exclusive with Jerry McCulloch? How underwhelmed were you?
I thought it answered the most important question that some of us have been asking about Michael Nicholson for years. Why doesn't he get in front of the camera? Well, now we know why, because he wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes in his job if he would have done this on the first day. He would have been they would have had him in the next room, and they'd have been saying to him, we might all have made a mistake here. This is why they don't let him out, because he's terrible. I mean, that was painful to watch. I said the other day that the Dundee game was so bad that I would rather gouge my eyes out than watch it again. Well, I would rather just lobotomize myself with a rusty spoon than watch Michael Nicholson talk again. This is why we never hear from him or see him. He's one of these people that you hide away in the cupboard. I'm using the comparison tomorrow in an article, but he's like Ruprecht the Monkey Boy from Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Just lock him in the basement and don't think about him too much. And that's your chief executive. That's what I thought of it. I thought it was embarrassing. I know why we don't see him.
How many takes do you think it took for Jerry McCulloch to take him through that? 4 minutes saying absolutely zero. Just trying
this is what we have instead of a leader. This is ridiculous.
It was almost as wooden a performance as the day before when he was wandering around Lennoxtown, possibly for the first time this season, trailing around behind our new manager. And that was on the back of the warm embrace that Wilfred Nancy got when he came out of the vehicle, and meted by regular guy Michael Nicholson, looking wholly uncomfortable with his open neck shirt and no tie, and then padding about.
Do you remember that horrendous social media post from no long ago making him out to be a tough guy, and he works 24 hours a day for Celtic? Well, this is what's amazed me most about the last couple of months, is how untough these people are, how sensitive they are, how easily spooked they are. Because if they think a couple of posters posted around where they live is harassment and intimidation, then I don't see how we can possibly not win this. Because if these people are cracking through this already, they ain't seen nothing yet. This isn't going away. The pressure's only going to ramp up on these guys, and as long as it stays within the law and as long as it stays within the boundaries of decency, I'm perfectly okay with it. But they ain't going to like it. This is bad. Their reaction to this has been so bad. And it's not just that it's been so negative and it's been so, and they've bunkered. They are honest. They come across as pathetic. They come across as unable to handle even the slightest criticism. They really are giving the impression of being very weak individuals. And that, by the way, goes all the way to Dublin. And the guy who sent his son to read out a prepared statement rather than face fans himself, I think it's disgusting. And they all should be pretty ashamed. This is not a good look. They can talk to the press all they want about how we will not give into this. The fact that you're running to the media and crying the blues over a couple of posters shows how not tough you are, how not up for the fight you are, how not in it for the long haul you are. Weak men. And if they think that they're going to outlast us, they're wrong. They're dead wrong. They're cracking under it already. And it's not even properly started yet.
Yeah, they've lived their life at Celtic in a bubble of self-congratulations. Yeah. Everyone telling them how wonderful you are, what a fantastic CEO you are. Look at those great figures. But things are turning, and I think as well as the action at matches, I'd be amazed if the retail sales are holding up at all. No. I would expect them to be at least 50% down. And there's a natural side to that. If the team's less successful, folk are less likely to buy things. But there's another edge to it now, the collective. So everyone involved with not another penny, congratulations on that slogan. It's working very well. It's very simple. It isn't threatening. It isn't intimidating. You're perfectly entitled to walk past a Celtic store and not spend money. You get an email or you see something on Twitter or Instagram, you're not obliged to click it and say, "Take my money, Mr. Celtic. Adidas, wonderful. This is fantastic. The best kit ever. Thank you so much." So those days are past me. I was mentioning at the weekend, not so long ago, folk would deliberately buy items from the Celtic shop, the Celtic store, which cost more money than it did in Sports Direct. And that was because they wanted to give money to the club. So it's quite a turnaround for the club to have achieved that folk will now just not buy things. And there's various pictures of Celtic catering at the home matches. The pies and bovrils and the lukewarm Coca-Cola isn't selling quite as quickly. Right, that's enough of that particular subject. Let's
Can I
switch
say one
to.
more thing on it?
I'll let you one more thing on. You go.
These guys have taken no personal accountability for any of this. They've tried to blame Rodgers. Now they're blaming fans. And at no point have they said, why are the supporters of a successful, well-run club turning on us like this? Maybe we've done something. At no point have any of them done that. And the really amazing thing is, as you said, mate, these guys have had a charmed life for a long, long time. And by the way, nothing necessarily needed to disturb that. These guys could have continued leading a charmed life for the next 10, 15 years, as long as they were on the planet to enjoy it. And all they had to do was support the manager properly instead of instigating a personal vendetta against them. That's all they had to do. Act like professionals and back the manager to the fullest extent. And they decided on the personal vendetta instead. And everything that they're going through right now is a consequence of that decision. And they can blame them all they want, but the state of the team tells you who was right and who was wrong. The state of the playing squad shows you who was correct in their judgment and who was faulty in theirs. And none of them want to own up to it. And I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right? But there have to be people in there who feel a deep sense of shame at how this is all unfolding. And the longer this goes on and the more they resort to these divisive tactics and attacking the collective for even daring to suggest that they're not doing a good job, the tougher it's going to get for them. And they don't even have the common sense to recognise that. The only way through this is to sit down and talk to fans. And that means starting with the Green Brigade and finding a way to get them back into the stadium as quickly as possible. And to ask supporters, basically, what do you need us to do? What do you want us to do, right? No, we're not going to get everything we want. We're not going to get all these people. All these people aren't going to resign, right? And Desmond's not going to walk away. But if they sit down with supporters and they engage supporters honestly and they say, what's it going to take to end this, to bring this to a close, they'll find supporters are a lot more agreeable and a lot more willing to talk and discuss things properly than they seem to be at the moment, because the collective right for the start has said that we are open to dialogue. Well, since the collective has said that, fan media has had its access revoked. The Green Brigade's been banned for the stadium. And now they're using 2 national newspapers to accuse the people who are campaigning for change at the club and for the betterment of Celtic of being involved in a campaign of harassment and intimidation. That does not suggest that these people want to talk. But the only way through this is that they either sit down and talk or they pack their bags, because we will outlast them here. They don't have the stomach for this. They've proved that already. And there must be people in there who know that this is a colossal mistake they're making and who must be mortified at the strategy that some of their colleagues are pursuing. And I think those people need to speak up. Some of those people need to speak up. And if you're a board member who thinks that this is being handled wrongly, then this might be the time to resign and make a principled stand on behalf of Celtic and walk away. I say that with no hope that anyone is going to do it, but this might be the time for that, because there cannot be this kind of collective insanity in there. There must be people who disagree with it, and there must be people who know that it's lunacy. So it's time for those people to speak up for the good of the club.
James, back in the early 90s, you had Tom Grant and Jim Farrell. They were dissenters. They didn't go along with the flow. But just now, you could change directors around and you wouldn't notice any difference. I mean, what's the difference between Tom Allison and Sharon Brown or Brian Rose or whatever the guy from Apple is? They're all there because they're clones. That's the way the world these days. So, but in the interests of fair play and balance, during the 15-minute video presentation at the AGM, Michael Nicholson admitted to the problems with communications, and we are due to get a new app, a revamp of Celtic TV, and they're considering a membership scheme. So instead of my Jers, it'll be my Tims or my Celts. So
exactly.
Watch out for that one.
It's no engagement, it's another money grab. An app is simply a way of saying, we're here and you're there, and you stay there and we'll stay here. An app is mere distance between the club and the fans. It's another talk to the app, don't talk to us. If you want news and information, get it for what we put out on the app, because there's not going to be any direct line of communication anymore. It's transparent. And the membership scheme, if it costs even 1 penny, they can ram it up their inboxes because no one is going to be interested in it.
James, I'd almost forgotten a subject that we brought up a year ago. Do you remember Celtic were selling off plots of land over Celtic Park?
I think that might be one of the most cynically exploitative things I've ever seen our club do. And I was pretty ashamed that they did that at the time when we talked about it on one of the podcasts. And there were people who listened to that podcast that night who hadn't even known that the club was doing that. And they were pretty shocked when they found out. Yeah, I mean, and bear in mind, guys, right? Those who might need refreshed on the story, they weren't selling plots of the pitch. They were selling virtual plots of the pitch. They were selling something that doesn't even exist to people who might have thought they were buying something real. It's one of the most cynical and despicable things I've ever seen. And bearing in mind that although this wasn't the club, this was licensed by the club. The club gave these people permission to do this and took a cut. And I hope it was the most unsuccessful idea that's ever been instigated in world history. I hope it made not one goddamn penny because it didn't deserve to. But I know that there were people who would have bought it. I know there were people who would have liked that idea and thought, I've got to have that. I've got to have that piece of nothing, because that's what it was. They were literally selling nothing.
Well, I checked that story out, and the website involved with it, it's no longer available. So I might have been...
Never was available, that's the point. It was a absolute fly-by-night scam. That's all it was. It was a scam, and these people allowed their club's name to be put to that. It's disgusting. That's the level of the people we're dealing with. They thought they could make a few quid out of it. Just disgusting.
You were getting a discount if you bought it for 3 years rather than one. Does that not not soften your attitude?
So this piece of nothing that you bought, you didn't even own it. You were only leasing nothing for a set period of time. Absolutely the most shameful shit I've ever seen our club involved in, by a distance. And I totally forgot about it.
Okay, right, moving on. Let's see. There was a game yesterday against Hearts, and I think yourself, me, and Eric are in complete agreement that if the other James Forrest isn't fit, we've got absolutely no options on the right wing. Last couple of games, Martin O'Neill sort of got around it by sticking left-footed Luke McCowan on the right wing position. Not once did he attempt to go by his fullback. McCowan's job, when he got the ball on the right-hand side, was to cut inside, Greg Taylor style, and create an extra midfielder for us. It worked reasonably well. It wasn't fantastic. It worked well, but the team news, most of us just thought that the manager would take over things, keep it ticking over, see what he's got, and maybe implement a small change here or there. But he went full on. So we two wingers, two wing backs. We don't have one winger at the club, and we haven't played with wing backs since Martin O'Neill left in 2005. So it was a little bit awkward. We had 3 left-footed central defenders. We had Austin Trusty almost playing out at right back, and it didn't look very good. I will concede there was a impressive, energetic first 20, 25 minutes. Maeda should have scored one, could have scored two, but he never. Maeda's better on the left wing, working up and down that flank. But they never get the goal. Hearts grew some confidence. I don't know what Arnie Engels was doing behind the back three in the left back position, but he was slow getting up. The goal was perfectly legitimate, and Hearts were 1-up at half time. Hearts got a corner midway through the second half. Everyone in their granny knows that Hearts are pretty prolific with corners. The guy fired in a great corner, lots of pace on it, and there was about three Hearts defenders all waiting for it, and one of them popped it in the net to the surprise of no one in particular, and there was nothing much for Celtic to do. The squad is very, very thin. Martin O'Neill came down to about, a push will be generous and say Martin O'Neill had 14 players that he would trust. The team against St Mirren, and then he made 3 changes for Feyenoord away. Tierney came in for Sirachi. We're still to find out any detail on Sirachi's injury, but the team, it was madness. Too much too soon. Top of the table clash against Hearts. Even though Hearts were struggling, they get a boost when they saw our team. They get a boost when they saw our management set up. It wasn't very good at all. So, what was your take, James, initially on the team and then the performances that petered out?
I had no problem with the team selection whatsoever. I had no problem with the change of tactics at all. And I agree with the guy. There was not the change of tactics that cost us yesterday. It was the same problem that every single one of us knows exists. The same problem that Rodgers knew existed. The same problem that O'Neill knew existed, which is one of the reasons why O'Neill did not want to inherit this mess and have any responsibility for trying to fix it. We are as weak as piss up front. We are so denuded of firepower. It's like watching a shadow of the Celtic team for the last 5 years, and there is no manager who could have gotten us past Hearts' 5-man wall yesterday. Nobody playing with this current squad that we have could have done it or would have done it. Martin O'Neill did incredibly well in a very short space of time to get his results in a number of key games that we had to win. But let's not pretend that the guy reinvented the wheel or that the football was spellbinding. It certainly was not. And this is a crucial difference when you have the manager talking about performances, not results, right? I don't find what he said one bit controversial, because Rodgers has said similar things and said similar things. Ange's just been preaching this his entire career, his entire managerial career, that performances come first, and once you get the performances right, the results will follow. That's logical. You can get good results with bad performances, but you're not going to build a title-winning team out of that. That will never work. This is why I don't believe that the Hearts title challenge is real. People keep asking me about how can you be so convinced? I'm absolutely convinced. Derek McInnes is not capable of assembling a title-winning team anywhere. Derek McInnes has been in charge of 2 of the biggest clubs in Scotland, and Derek McInnes' sole trophy in that time is a solitary League Cup, won on penalties at Aberdeen against Inverness at Celtic Park, as it so happens. That puts him on a par with Tommy Knight, Alan Stubbs. I did the piece on this today. There are like 5 other managers in the league. There are 5 other Scottish football managers who, since McInnes has been doing his thing in the touchline, have won a domestic trophy. Callum Davidson has won 2. So he's nothing special, McInnes, right? But he didn't have to be special yesterday. He only had to know that if we play Maeda through the middle and we put whoever we're going to put out wide, that if he puts up 5 men at the back, we're going to struggle to break it down. And we needed the first goal. That's the bottom line. We needed to score the first goal. And without the first goal, we were always in trouble. And the second they scored the first goal, they shut up shop even more, and we were never getting through it. It's about personnel. We just don't have the players to execute any of the systems that these guys have got. We had one shot on target at Love Street. One shot on target. We scored from it. I was ecstatic that we scored from it, but we rode our luck, right? So we had that performance. We had the Dundee performance on Wednesday night, which was torturous and atrocious. And for the second time, Stephen Presley has been able to stop Celtic from playing properly by just massing at the back. And he almost got away with it again. And what makes it incredibly hard to take the day is seeing the number of people who've said, why didn't he just leave the system alone? Well, had he left the system alone, we would have had the same front three and faced the exact same problems and the exact same situation and probably with the exact same result. I don't believe for a second that Martin O'Neill playing with that team and the tactics that we've been watching for the past 4 weeks would have gotten anything more from that game than this guy was able to get. He gambled yesterday, but he had two choices: to stick or twist, and sticking was never going to get us a result. And so he twisted, and that didn't get us a result. I feel sorry for him in that regard. I am not going to blame him for it. The problem we have is the same we've had since the start of this season. Our forward line has been annihilated by the people in charge of the club, and they have not replaced any of it. And what's worse, right, is that our summer signings scare the living shit out of me. I don't see that any value in any of them. We've seen enough of Tenecti to have serious questions about whether he is good enough. We haven't seen any of Balaquisha, and that's terrifying, considering who's starting in his place most weeks. And if he's no good enough to even get in the team, then we're in real trouble in terms of who we signed in the summer. We're in real trouble. Nygren has done well and scored goals, but if you were looking for pace and power, you would not sign him. And the Japanese guys, how many managers need to look at these guys and reject them before we wonder why the hell they were ever bought in the first place? The whole thing is terrifying. Watching that yesterday was terrifying for the absolute lack of quality we have up front. We are abject right now. And I will correct you on one thing, right? And that's how I have been doing this all day long, and it's driving me mad. And the worst culprits, right, are in the mainstream media, who are accusing the manager of playing with wing backs yesterday. We played a 3-4-3 yesterday. 3 at the back. Tierney,
yep.
Trusty, and Scales. 4 in the middle, right? As mad as it sounds. McGregor, Hattati, Engels, and Nygren, right? We played 3 up front. The middle guy was Hattati, right? The middle guy was Maeda. So if we were playing wing backs, if Teneke was playing as a wing back and Yang was playing as a wing back, where are our other 2 front 3? They played as forwards yesterday. They played as inside forwards yesterday. They didn't play as wing backs, and they were fucking terrible, both of them. I'm terrified. Really terrified of this team.
I said we don't have wing backs. We'd have the wing backs.
Well, Alistair Johnson plays a wing back. If he wants to use wing backs in his team, we need to get AJ back fast. And we need to get the boy on the left back fast as well, whatever injury he's got. And by the way, if he is not injury prone, I would sign him. He would be one of the first players on the list because he is a good player and he would have a future at our club. But as usual, we brought in a loan signing without an option to buy, so we'll probably suffer for that if we decide to.
Well, a few points of disagreement. The team under Martin O'Neill, agree with you. It was not in any way pretty. It wasn't any change of policy. Martin O'Neill was a manager, and that's why you bring in interims. Was able to work the fine margins in Celtic's favour. So the games against Dundee, Hibs, and St Mirren, they could have went the other way, but somehow or other, Martin O'Neill found a way of getting them through it. And bringing in Tunetke and dropping McCowan wasn't a wise move yesterday. Not playing with a right back wasn't a wise move. I agree. You only get results through performances, but that's something that you can work on in pre-season and you can sort out in your early fixtures. But when you come in as a manager in December and Nancy knew for a couple of weeks in advance who's coming into Celtic, there is not the time to change things.
No.
You've got to work with what you've got. Martin O'Neill had stumbled. Not Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney had worked something out, and it was effective, and it was getting results. And it was a
got
massive
results. I would dispute that it was effective. It got results.
Okay, right. Effective to me is picking up 3 points. So it was working, and to go away from that radically was a massive gamble that wasn't needed. Martin O'Neill could probably get a draw against Hearts. And in terms of the title challenge, I don't think Hearts are fantastic, but
No.
they might be champions, or they might be a close runners-up by default. And that's because during 2024, Celtic lost 2 matches, one at Tynecastle and one to Borussia Dortmund. In 15 league matches so far this season, Celtic have lost 3 times.
Yeah.
So Hearts, by getting around 78, 80 points, which isn't ridiculous on what they've got so far, could be very, very close to the title. Generally, Celtic have been putting in the high 90s points.
High
I think
90s,
last season it tailed off a bit. We all know what happened post Munich, but Celtic are not going to hit 90 plus points this season. Celtic, if they do well, probably in the 80s, and that could bring Hearts into a title challenge by default. So, Celtic's next league match, Dundee United away at Tannadice, 3 days after the League Cup final at Hampden. That's another 50-50 shout. I've no idea how the Roma and St Mirren games are going to go, but Dundee United away at Tannadice, there's no reason to take any confidence into that match. So, James, do you think that Nancy Nonce is going to be able to get his system working over the next couple of weeks and produce winning performances?
See, this depends what you mean about get it working. If
he's winning matches,
he's got to work with the current personnel. We've got to be riding our luck week to week, and that's all we've been doing all season. That's, by the way, what we were doing under Martin and Sean and all. Right? They had a good run. Right? I think that run would have ended yesterday, regardless. Right? Because honestly, I couldn't even conceive of our players being our front three being as bad as they were yesterday. I couldn't even conceive of it when we were thinking about the Hearts game, but they were awful. All 3 of them were absolutely awful. And I know I shouldn't be surprised by it, but I was really surprised by how bad they were. And I don't really have any faith that this current Celtic squad's good enough. If we don't get the job done in January, we're in real trouble. And I read something by somebody today who said that we have to accept that we're in a 3-horse race now for the title. And you know what? I completely refute that as well, because this is not a 3-horse race. If this is a race, it's a donkey derby. There's no fucking thoroughbreds in this one, let me tell you. But the winner of this could very conceivably be the team that stumbles over the line first.
Yep, that sounds very much like 1998.
And if we don't fix your squad, that's exactly what we're going to be.
97, 98, the old Rangers, Celtic and Hearts were in contention. They were stumbling like mad. We lost at Ibrox. They went ahead. Then the following week, we beat Motherwell. They lost at Aberdeen. We used to have won the league at Dunfermline in the second last game, but it got quite dramatic and it went to the final day and we tripped over the line. But however it was managed, they managed it, and the rest is history. So that's us covered a little bit of Wilfried Nancy. We've not mentioned magnetic boards. I'll possibly leave that aside. We'll turn to our Dr. Football, the mystery man, Paul Tisdale, the man from Exeter City. 12 years managing Exeter City. Then he went on to manage giants like MK Dons, Stevenage and Bristol Rovers, and had a consultancy with Colchester United. So for some reasons, possibly, for whatever reason, possibly connected with a golf course, he managed to get a consultancy gig at Celtic, and in October 2024, he was appointed as Celtic's head of football operations. No one knew that Celtic were looking for a head of football operations. It seemed to be a job that was created for him. And my take from someone that knows a bit about these things is he's been on an incredible empire building course. He's been trashing everyone else. and making himself out to be the hipster, the groovy guy, the man from Exeter with his bespoke analytics, and that was possibly seen in our summer signings. So we're in agreement. The squad is terrible. The squad is massive downgrade. There's nothing else to be debated about that. Rodgers tried to get them playing a certain way. Martin O'Neill got them playing in a different way, and it was effective. Effective means winning matches, picking up 3 points. And now we've got Wilfred Nancy coming in, and we'll see what he's trying to do. But James, last week you seemed to have a bit of faith in Paul Tidsdale. As most folk know, I'm a cynic.
Yes, mate, you are in terms of Paul Tisdale. Yep.
And a cynic in terms of most things. If you've been employed by Celtic, I suspect you're not possibly the best candidate for the job. I think there's other reasons, other factors that you've got that job. I see absolutely nothing in a guy that's managed Exeter City, got a couple of consultancy jobs, and has nothing whatsoever on his CV to say that he's a recruitment guru, he can buy and sell players, and he can develop academy players into Champions League players. Not only is he in charge of recruitment of players, he now has a massive influence on managers. We'll never know why Brendan Rodgers resigned. We can speculate over reasons why he did resign. But James, you seem to have a bit of faith in Paul Tidsdale because he's a football man.
Yep.
I'll let you expand on that because I see nothing in what he's done in his career so far. Nothing in what he's done with Celtic to suggest that he should be given a full-time job and an expanded remit to be selecting managers. So, over to you.
Paul Tisdale is not being hired as a manager. So his previous managerial experience at whatever level is utterly irrelevant to the job that he's doing right now. I've said that.
He's got no experience. He's got no experience at all.
By knowing that he understands the concepts of football, the basic concepts, and understands what the needs of a manager are, better than some bean counter who's never done the job and who's never been in the dugout. I'm comforted by those things. But I said that I am not going to judge Paul Tisdale on what people think he is, but on what he actually does. And if the summer transfer window is his work and all his work, then it's a fucking failure from where I'm sitting right now. A failure, a colossal, scandalous, unacceptable failure. There's no two ways about that. I don't see any merit in the current squad or in most of the signings that he's made. The one you can make an argument for, as I said, is Nygren. But if you would have been going looking for somebody where the requisites that Rodgers himself had set out, that is not who you would have signed. So I don't know who is to blame for that. I don't know who's to blame for assembling the list in the summer and going out and getting these players. But none of them look like they're up to it. And that's terrible to say that. But we've seen enough of Tinecti to wonder if we've wasted the money on him. We've not seen it enough of Balakisha to tell us either way. But the fact that we've not seen enough suggests that there's not really that much to work with. And the rest of them, who the hell even knows what the thought process was. So if Tisdale's responsible for that, then his jacket is already on a sugary peg. If he has gotten the manager wrong, then he's fucking done. Because the one thing I know for a fact is that this board of directors will not take any personal responsibility. And so they will terminate his ass in 2 seconds flat. The second he outlives his usefulness, which is to be a bullet shield for them, he's gone. He's done. And I should feel sorry for these people right now because Tisdale's being judged on things that he's not and judged on a job that he's not even responsible for. And the thing yesterday with him appearing to be asleep, I don't know whether he was asleep. I have no idea. The guy could have a migraine, could have had his eyes shut. The guy could have been processing a thought. There's a million things that could have been going on yesterday when he was caught on camera. That could just be a mischievous bastard at Sky who wanted to catch someone in that director's box in the most embarrassing moment possible. And I should feel sorry for him and I should feel sorry for them that there are probably mischievous bastards in the Sky camera teams who have been told just to focus on the director's box until they catch something untoward or silly. And you know what? I don't feel in the least bit sorry for any of them. Don't feel in the least bit sorry for a single one of them, and Tisdale's included. And as I said, this scrutiny they're under right now is not going to go away. If there are people in the Sky team behind the scenes who have been told to keep an eye on the director's box and see if we can get somebody in an embarrassing position, good. All with the good. All with the good. Keep it up. I don't know that Tisdale had fell asleep, but it looks dreadful. It's only grown the impression that these people are under siege, and as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough for me. I'm happy that they feel that way. I'm happy that they feel under pressure and under constant scrutiny. And Tisdale, as I say, I will judge Tisdale on results. I'm not interested in what people think he's doing or think he's done. We can only judge him on results. But I didn't feel in the least bit bad for him yesterday. When the cameras focused on that, I don't feel in the least bit bad that he's getting pilloried for it. These people are where they deserve to be. They're in the spotlight. That they earned it. They earned this. As I said to you, mate, they could have had an easy life for the rest of their lives and sat in those directors' boxes and been utterly anonymous in many, many regards, and now they're in the spotlight because they put themselves there. And every single act against the fans keeps them there. And long may it continue. I was happy to see him getting caught in a slightly uncomfortable pose yesterday. Good. They better get used to it because it's not going to stop. The media's got their teeth into these guys now. It's no letting go.
Right, James, I'm going to a little correction. I was citing Tisdale's managerial record because it's a fact. I have no knowledge whatsoever on his record as head of football operations because he's never been head of football operations. He knows a few wee things about it. He talks a good game on YouTube. He's utterly full of himself. He is our Michael Beale, a guy with very little talent. And
if your argument is that there were better candidates out there and we should have went, if we wanted a head of football operations, we'd have conducted a proper search and got a good one, then I'll agree with you wholeheartedly. 100%.
Yeah.
Is he the best we could have got? Fucking no chance. Not even close. Not even remotely close to being the best person to do that job. Not in the vicinity, of course. World class in everything we do. No, that ain't even near it. That's not in the same ballpark as being world class. No, I agree with you there. He's miles away from the best candidate for that job. That doesn't mean that he will not do the job well if given a chance and given time and given freedom and given support. That doesn't mean he won't do it well. But in terms of the best candidate, no, of course he's not. God, no. Hell no. Celtic never do best candidate for anything. Celtic never do a proper search and go and find the best person. If somebody at Celtic Park's contact book happens to be reasonably decent at something, then that's good enough. They get a job on the basis of that. So you know a wee bit about contracts. Well, why don't you come in and run that whole thing for the club? That's how it works at Celtic. The people who've described the Tisdale hire as being about cronyism are 100% correct. That is exactly what it is. That doesn't mean that you won't be able to do it. But it looks like shit. It looks terrible. And as I say, I should feel sorry for him, and I should feel sorry for them getting pilloried or what really amounts to a nonsensical moment of nothing right. But I don't feel in the least bit sorry for them. They're getting what they deserve. The scrutiny that they're getting right now, they brought it upon themselves. And I have no problem with it.
I think we've got some common ground there, but he shouldn't be anywhere near the job. He's got no credentials
he's
for
not
it.
The best person for it. No, even close.
And as I say, from someone that knows a bit about it, the guy is full of himself. If you check him on YouTube, half close your eyes. It's like listening to Michael Beale. Somebody with great ideas.
I'm just not like listening to Michael Nicholson. I can probably cope with it without heavy drugs.
Tisdale knows everything about everything, but for some reason, no club in England would give him an important job. He was down at Exeter and then turned to YouTube, created the title of being the football doctor. So we'll draw a line on Dr. Sleepy.
I'm just going to say one thing. I'm not going to talk about the tactics board tonight, but I'm going to write about it for tomorrow. I find the focus on the tactics board embarrassing, to say the least. I'm not in the least bit. I don't think we should be slagging the guy for the tactics board any more than we'd slag a handyman for bringing a hammer to work. It's just preposterous the amount of attention some people are giving to an absolute nothing. Absolutely insignificant, unimportant detail. But I'll write about it. I'll write about it for tomorrow.
I'm a bit old school. I'd prefer that the manager spoke face to face with the captain and told him to move the ball forward, move the ball sideways, play it down the left, play it down the right, rather than moving little figures about
Well,
a magnetic board.
if you believe certain people, we did something incredibly complicated yesterday, and we dropped this whole new style on the team without properly explaining it to them. And rather than stand there with Callum and say to Callum, build a mental picture of the pitch in your head, he said, this is where you're supposed to be, and this is where he's supposed to be. It's very simple. I don't find any issue with it whatsoever. I find it embarrassing, the attention some people are getting. I really do. I don't know what they I don't know what they think they know. But if they've ever been to Celtic Park and done the tour and stood on the touchline where the manager watches a game, the manager needs some visual frame of reference for keeping it in his head, because it's really nearly impossible to see what's happening on the pitch when you're standing there. I genuinely don't know how they manage it. But I do know that every single manager has his version of the tactics board, whether it's on an iPad, whether it's on a laptop. Brendan had his wee notebook. I know every manager has a version of it. So as I say, to me, this is the equivalent of a handyman bringing a hammer. And we're not going to slag a handyman for bringing a hammer.
As I said, I'd prefer a face-to-face, tell the captain a few things and get it done in the park. But we'll park that one for now. We might come back to it at a future edition. Now we'll switch to the thorny subject of fan media. So I was very, 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 very briefly involved in a few pilot schemes back during the COVID times. We got to speak to John Kennedy, we got to speak to David Turnbull, but I was on holiday when Don Mackay introduced Ange Postecoglou. It promised a whole new dawn, but Don Mackay lasted, I think it was 71 days, and it all sort of came to a halt. And beyond that, I was going. No, I'll not mention the name of the website, but there's one Celtic website was very keen and pushing for it, and managed to get things moving again. But it was on a rota. So while Celtic welcome their good friends at the Daily Record, the Sun, STV, Radio Clyde, and others, and for every event at Celtic Park, fan media was to be allowed into the broadcast section on a rota and allowed to ask one question. And except if Celtic signed a player, you could come along and you'd ask them about how much you're looking forward to playing at Celtic Park under the floodlights, the big European nights. Do you think the Celtic supporters are the best fans in the world? It was absolutely pointless. It added nothing to my website. It added nothing to anything, and I was never involved in it. James has got a slightly different story. James came out in solidarity with me after I was trashed by Sir Peter Lowell because at the tournament I had the something or other. I spoke out of turn. I questioned the brilliance of his son at the 2024 AGM, and that same day, James came out of the Celtic fan media rota in support, and I suspect James hasn't regretted it. But on Friday, 2 Celtic websites were due to turn up for the limited unveiling of a manager. 14 minutes with broadcast media in the company of Ian Jamieson. I think Ian Jamieson should get lots more shout outs across Celtic fan media. Ian Jamieson is not a Celtic fan. Ian Jamieson does not like Celtic. Ian Jamieson does not like Celtic supporters. Ian Jamieson might have put the light out on James in his room, but Ian Jamieson's the man that drives a lot of communications from Celtic. And on Friday, with an hour's notice, those 2 Celtic websites were told, sorry lads, not today, you're not allowed. We're reviewing fan media access. A bit like reviewing the access of the Green Brigade to the Celtic games. Because 80 guys left for a concourse during the game against Falkirk, 300 season ticket holders have been banned from attending matches. We know they can't actually do that. You can swap season tickets quite easily. You can acquire tickets quite easily, but it's window dressing from Celtic. quite a few websites and podcasts seem deeply upset by the fan media ban. I think it's pointless. It's a box ticking exercise. There's nothing of substance. When you see how other clubs operate it, genuine fan media gets to ask genuine questions, and they're there quite regular. But James got a slightly different take on it. You think it's a big loss on the part of the club to have cut off fan media? I'll pass the mic over your way.
I think it's a loss for the club because the club never understood why Don Mackay wanted to do it in the first place. And that's problem number one. Don Mackay brought this in because he saw the value in involving fan media and projecting the club's message in all sorts of different ways, right? And Mackay has seen how well that has worked in rugby, and he's seen how well it worked at other clubs and across all sports, in fact, right? And he thought that it was a natural modernising move. He thought there was nothing wrong with it, that it would be a good way to involve supporters and let supporters know that they were valued and that their voices were important. And I happen to know that Don Mackay was given a list when he went to Celtic of the fan sites that he should read every single day. I was told that, right? That Don Mackay was told by someone in the club, these are the guys you should read all the time. And Don Mackay had made a really good decision there. And the decision benefited Celtic in a lot of ways, right? I do have some stories that I am waiting for the right time to share, and I'm waiting for the right time to share them, because I know the law that the club is willing to stoop to now, in relation to smearing supporters and smearing fan media, right? We saw it, as you said, mate, with yourself, right, at the AGM, and how much contempt they had for fan media was on such blatant display that day that I was like, well, I'm not participating anymore in this farce, because that's what it is. It's a farce. But I know more about it than just that. I know that there is. I know that, put it this way, I know fan media has been lied to on many occasions.
Yep.
Right. And we've been steered to portray things differently than they actually are on numerous occasions, right? And that for my sins, I actually did it, right? On a couple of occasions, right? And I am not going to tell that story until I have to tell it. Right? I'm keeping that one in my back pocket because I have no idea what the club might do next to fan media. I have no idea what the club might do to any is next, right? So that one I'm keeping, just in case. But I know, and I knew right from the start what the whole fan media thing was, right? I knew that Don Mackay was serious about it, but the second Don Mackay was gone, it was obvious that there were some people in the club who were going to have a problem with it. And they only ever agreed to it because they thought that fan media's responsibility was to be cheerleaders and basically back the club all the time on everything that it did. And I always realised that the whole thing was conditional on that. That the whole thing was conditional on you behaving like cheerleaders. And that's why right from the start, I kept a distance from it, because I realised that it was the whole thing was going to be on the club's terms. You know, it was never done for there were people inside Celtic who agreed to it because they thought that once they had us all inside the tent, you know, pissing out, we would never be outside it pissing in, right? So that's they saw it as a coercive move, and that's why some of them agreed to it in the first place. And I knew when they had if they ever had their day, that it would always be at the club's behest and always be conditional. So I kept my distance right from the start. I attended the first ever event that they did, which was with Don Mackay himself and Ange. But after that event, it was made pretty clear that was as close to the executives and the people who run the club that we were ever going to get. That was a one-off, right? Don Mackay might have came back and done the interviews, right, and been happy to do it. Nobody else at Celtic supported that. Nobody else at Celtic wanted that to happen. And when Don Mackay was gone, the chances, which were already slim, became zero. And I didn't see any value. As you said, mate, I didn't see any value in going and talking to players and asking players, oh, so you're back fit. When do you expect to be back in the team? And nonsense like that. That's not the kind of stuff that I write. It's not the kind of thing that I do. That takes a certain skill set that I don't possess, and I don't find it interesting, and I don't find it engaging. And so I only ever went to select events that it did where I thought there were questions that would be of value to the readers, like stuff with the managers. Sit-downs with the manager are always interesting, especially when the guy's just in the door or at the end of the season when the club has been successful. And I always found them to be valuable experiences. And to be honest, mate, we've drawn from it. I did that to support yourself, right? Because I was pissed off at the message that Log sent that day when he talked about bloggers with agendas, and I was like, well, get to fuck then. But it didn't cost me anything. I haven't lost anything from it. I don't feel like there was any experience that I would have had that I didn't get to have. Except for one. The only experience that would have been worthwhile would have been to sit in front of Wilfred Nancy and ask him some questions. And all of us were denied that. Even the mainstream media was denied a chance at a proper unveiling for this guy. And that's how much these people have bunkered up since all this started. That they don't even want to sit with one guy on one side and one guy on the other side and answer questions while the guy sits there. They don't want to be asked who ran the process. They don't want to be asked, is Paul Tisdale qualified to run the process? They don't want to be asked who made the final decision. So they bottled it and denied the guy the chance to even have a proper new manager unveiling, which I think is one of the most cowardly acts that this cowardly board has ever committed. But they did something even worse than that. And I listened to the Four Tims guys today, and I thought that their podcast was outstanding today. They were brilliant. And they hit the nail on the head. They said something really important. One of the reasons why Ange got accepted the way he did, and one of the reasons why Ange got defended through the early ropey start with the away defeats and stuff, was because fan media had already sat down and met the guy and spoke to the guy. And we were all on side. For the minute we listened to that guy's ideas out that guy's own mouth, we were there. We were his Praetorian Guard. And Dave Fox, who got slagged through the nines for it, right, stood up as one of the first guys to ask a question and told him that you better understand that your friends are in this room. They're not next door with the mainstream media. They'll stab you in the back in 2 seconds. Your allies, your friends are here. And we are your only allies, right? And Ange got that right away. And Dave took some amount of slagging for that. And he was right. And that was key to the whole thing. The second he said that, and we were all on board, we were going to defend Ange to the hilt through that early period. And they decided not to let Wilfred Nancy have that same experience, to sit in front of the supporters and explain his ideas to them directly. And he would have got the same support and the same backing wholeheartedly. And the people who are questioning this decision to hire him in the first place might have been won over. And the people who are wondering what his ideas are like would have been in a position to ask him to explain them better if he would have said the same as he said in the press conference at the end of the game yesterday about performances, not results. He would have been asked to explain that, and he would have done it properly. And they denied that. And they denied the guy that. They kept him away from the only people who can protect him when the media are sharpening their knives. Now, there is a clown who writes for the Scottish Daily Mail called Callum Crowe, and I know you know who I mean. I'm sure you've come across him, right? He's already comparing him to Russell Martin after one game. These are the dickheads we're dealing with, right? These are the people who cannot wait to shove a knife in the guy's front and the guy's back and the guy's skull if they can get away with it. And the only people who can protect him from that are us. And Celtic locked us out of the opportunity to meet that guy and understand him properly so we could do that. And it's appalling. It's a colossal mistake they've made. A colossal mistake. And it's one of many they've made in relation to the fans. Fan media, the club has never been shy about using fan media when it wants to push a line or an agenda. This whole argument that we had with the club across the city about tickets that lasted for X number of years, right? Fan media drove the board's version of that argument the whole time. Every single time there was a meeting, the club told fan media, this is what was said, this is what was done, this is what the line you're reading in the mainstream media Forget it, ignore it, it's a lie. This is what actually happened. And the club was never going to defend itself like that. It asked us to do it, and we did it. And now it wants to screw us because all of them signed the collective letter and they don't like it. They don't like being criticised. So it's disgusting. The way they're treating the fans is disgusting. And this is just another front. And I wrote an article called First They Came for the Manager, which basically predicted that this would happen. Because first it was him, then it was the Green Brigade, then it was fan media. I mean, who's next? These people just keep cycling through the scapegoats until there's nobody left. And don't think that any part of the support is going to be immune for this. I mean, it's just going to go on and on and on. This campaign's going to go on and on and on. And their reactions to it are just going to get more draconian and more ridiculous. But this is a major own goal. This is a massive own goal. And they have hurt the manager directly already. And they don't even realise it. It's shocking, man. It really is. They don't even get what they've done.
I would agree with you on the mistakes were made in 2021 when Ange and Don Mackay were there, and then it was watered down and diluted ridiculously. Yeah. So fan media sites have been going along with this and been happy to get. I think they sent out a note at the start of the season to say you can come along and ask one question for the St Mirren game in February, the Aberdeen game in December, whatever. I mean, just tell them where to go with that. I mean, as you said, I thought that was what you were hiding. But when it comes to the tickets and the tit for tat at Ibrox and all that sort of stuff, Celtic would never go in and say, this is our stance. But they whispered to various fan media sites and they all thought it was great. Oh, we'll be off and run with this. A Celtic insider told us, blah, 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 Celtic website understands. But they've been used. There's been no benefit for them. If the club doesn't want to open up and deal with lots of fan media and deal with them regular, then the fan media sites are as well not bothering with them. And equally, if you sign up to the Celtic Fans Collective, one among their targets, among their ambitions, is for Peter Lowell, Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay to be removed from their jobs. So it's not a big surprise when you're not getting invited in to ask questions. But as we've said a few times, it is no loss to ask one question every 6 weeks to a manager. So hopefully the fan websites that were left out say thanks but no thanks. If you're not going to give us the same treatment as
at this point, every one of them should pull out it, formally pull out it and withdraw it and collapse the whole thing because it is a nonsense. It turned into a nonsense, as you say, the minute they imposed the first restriction and said, you'll have a wee word with the manager and you'll have a wee word with the players, but you'll never get to question us. Of course.
Yep. If fan media doesn't get the same.
But by the way, this is I know at least 2 fan media sites that were on the rotation and got removed for it for being critical of the board. So it was always conditional. And it's not, it's now a blank. It now looks like a blanket ban because so many are supporting the collective. But it was always conditional, and they always made it clear it was conditional. And they have banned fan media sites that have been critical in the past. So, they always had a set of handcuffs ready to slam on anybody who said stuff they didn't like, and they've done it, and they're no shy about doing it.
If fan media doesn't get the same access as Celtic's preferred legacy media partners, they're good friends at the Daily Record, they're friends at the Sun, the Daily Mail, News Quest, which covers the Times, the Herald, and all others. If you don't get the same access as that, tell them to keep it. It's absolutely pointless if you're not getting the same access. There might have been a timing issue with Nancy on Friday. It was all a bit rushed. They had other things to do, but if they could create 15 minutes for their legacy friends, broadcasters, Radio Clyde, BBC, etc., then there's a separate. Nancy had a separate media conference with daily newspapers and with Sunday newspapers.
Yeah.
So any guys
who are lining up with to take all sorts of shots at them.
Yeah. So the guys are all up.
And tell Monty that it's not a blanket ban, it's a bed sheets with naughty words on them ban. Because that's next. It's the next thing fans are going to get banned for.
So guys from other websites that are looking in tonight, have a good think about this. Is there anything that you gain personally or your website gains by being in the Celtic fan media loop? There's nothing to be gained from it, nothing at all. You'll feel better for being out of it. You'll be able to publish whatever you fancy. There's no repercussions from it, and you'll be better for it, and Celtic will be better for it, rather than hanging on for scraps, getting told some wee tip bit that's useless. And again, the bottom line, if you get a phone call from Jameson or his lovely assistant telling you something, have a think about it. Are they telling you that because they're using you? Are they telling you something because they want to help you and they want to help Celtic supporters? So I've been sort of hosting tonight. It's time to wrap up. We'll have Eric back with us next week. We'll also have two exceptional guests, two guys that know the history, two guys that will give you plenty to laugh about, a lot more to laugh about than you get from us two. But I'll pass the final word to James if you want to sign off for tonight. And who knows what madness lies in store against Roma on Thursday night and at Hampden on Sunday against St Mirren. Over to you, James.
The guys in the collective have been getting slagged for weeks and weeks now about how their protests and demonstrations and general negative energy are threatening the manager and the team. I know for a fact that some of the people who have been slagging the collective for that are the same people today who are demanding that the manager get sacked after one game. And these people are very lucky that I have neither the time nor the inclination to put together a big, massive list of them. Otherwise, I would come on here next week and I would read it out and I would embarrass the shit out of all of them. They should be embarrassed already. But this is the time when we need to support the manager and the team the most. So if they can set aside their personal dislike of us hiring a guy for the MLS, if they can set aside their personal dissatisfaction that St Martin did not get until the end of the season, if they can set aside whatever feelings they have about the 3-4-3 or whatever system they think it was that we played with wing-backs yesterday when we didn't actually use wing-backs yesterday, I'm sure that the manager and the team would be very grateful for their support. I know that 95% of the boys in the collective will be giving this guy a chance and will be backing them 100% of the way, as we've been doing since the start.
Right, I was giving James the last word, but I'll bang the drum. Please like, please subscribe, please comment, please share. So if you've watched this live, pop back in 5 minutes and share your thoughts. Unless you're a happy clapper. If you're a happy clapper, head back to Celtic Thick News and share your thoughts with the happy clappers on there. There's no place for you on my website. There's no place for you in James's website. There's no place for you in Eric's website. But if you're a non-happy clapper, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, and all the rest of it. So, Merry Christmas to happy clappers everywhere. Not.